It is our 16th week. We are still in Montana, but today is our last day in Montana, and today I will be spotlighting the murder of Jeanette Atwater. Jeanette, 34, a mother of three who went by the nickname Charlie, spent the night out at a bar with friends that ended with her being found in the trunk of her car that was set ablaze on the side of the road, just feet from the bar she was last seen at. While the mystery of who killed Jeanette is still unsolved today, an even bigger mystery for investigators is when and how Jeanette left the bar that night. And what was the motive? Detective Ron Wilson told the Dickinson press that initially Jeanette's case they thought would be solved relatively quickly. He said, quote, "At first it seemed like this may be the kind of cut and dried case. She was out with a date or she was with some people and something happened that led to this." End quote. But he said after he interviewed people close to Jeanette and those that were there that night, they realized that this case was going to be very hard to solve. On January 16th, 2000 at 3:32 a.m., a car in the area of Metro Park was reported on fire. A couple driving down Bench Boulevard saw the burning car in the gravel pit parking lot near the bike path and called the emergency services to report it. Firefighters struggled to put the fire out, and when they popped the trunk, they found a severely burned body. Initially, they were not able to determine whether this was male or female, but they did use dental records to determine that the victim was likely Jeanette, who the car was registered to. They were also pretty sure it was her based off of the jewelry and clothing found with the remains during the autopsy. The autopsy determined that Jeanette's death was likely caused by asphyxiation, and that she was most likely alive when she was placed in the trunk of the car. However, they don't know whether she was conscious at this point or not. Investigators knew that they were going to have to work backwards in Jeanette's case to piece together the last days and hours by interviewing her family, friends, and co-workers. Jeanette worked at the Napa Distribution Center, and they learned that evening before her death she had attended a company banquet. Jeanette was well liked by many of her employees, and she went by the nickname Charlie. After interviewing friends and family and co-workers, they determined that Jeanette had no real enemies, and she was really well liked and had no financial troubles like gambling or addiction that would point investigators to a motive for her murder. Jeanette was divorced and now a single mother of three, and her ex-husband lived in Washington. Investigators did question him repeatedly, but determined that he had nothing to do with her murder, and at the time of her murder, their three children were visiting him in Washington. Investigators were able to determine that after the banquet, Jeanette headed over to a bar where she used to work to hang out with some of her old co-workers. She did not appear to leave with anyone after she decided to part. From there, Jeanette headed over to the Players Club where she planned to join up with a group of Napa employees. She arrived alone, and she most likely parked her 1987 Sierra in the bar's parking lot. The bar is no longer there and has now been turned into a hotel. Fellow employees and witnesses would tell investigators that they saw Jeanette dance with a man at the bar, but that the man left before closing time. Witnesses and co-workers do remember seeing Jeanette after the man left the bar. Around 2 a.m., the bar announced that they were closing and the lights came on and everybody headed towards the exit doors. Except Jeanette was nowhere to be found. And when investigators went through the surveillance footage from the bar that night, Jeanette could not be found in the crowd leaving the bar, and her co-workers said that they didn't see her in the crowd or in the parking lot after the bar closed. The parking lot of the bar was empty around 2:15 a.m., and it would be close to 2 hours later when Jeanette's car would be found on fire, parked in the gravel pit within sight of the Players Club. Investigators were able to determine that gasoline had been used to set the car on fire, and an empty gasoline container and a book of matches were found on the ground nearby. Across the street from the Players Club is a 24-hour gas station, and investigators believe that the clerk working that night most likely met Jeanette's killer. Investigators did pull the station's surveillance footage and noticed shortly after 3 a.m. there would be a car that would pull into the outermost pumps of the station. The timestamp reads 3 a.m. and it shows a man inside the store standing at the counter. The clerk said the man bought $8 worth of gas, grabbed a pack of matches off the counter, and left. Unfortunately, the clerk was not able to provide the best description, saying that the vehicle was brown, a hatchback, and had an orange stripe. She also didn't know if the man put the gasoline he purchased into the car or the container, and she couldn't tell if the man was alone in the vehicle. The surveillance footage shows a white male about 5'10", believed to be in his 30s. He had light acne scarring on his face and brown hair and was wearing pants and a jacket or a jogging suit. Something that did stick out to the clerk about the man was that he was wearing expensive or at least very strong cologne or aftershave. Investigators did circulate an image of this unknown man who bought gas, and this image was featured on America's Most Wanted, but they have still yet to identify him. Not only that, they still don't have a motive for Jeanette's murder. but investigators genuinely do not know when or how she left the bar since she is not seen on surveillance footage that night leaving through the front door. Investigators will not release information on certain aspects of Jeanette's investigation, like whether she was sexually assaulted or her toxicology reports. They will not discuss how or when they believe Jeanette was placed in the trunk of her car. Because they can't find anything in Jeanette's life that singles her out as a target, and there's no trace evidence, DNA, or fingerprints, and no similarities between other crimes that they can cross-reference, this case remains unsolved. One theory investigators have is that Jeanette possibly met someone passing through and she just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Investigators are asking if you have any information in Jeanette's case to please contact the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Cold Case Unit 24-hour tip line at 406-254-7988. Please continue to share Jeanette's face in her case in hopes that we can generate a lead, any leads in her case. Thank you so much for taking the time to get to know Jeanette today, and don't forget, when you see those missing and murdered posts on social media, hit like and share. And I will see you all next week as we head over to Nebraska.